Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Conversations with INFJs and INFPs. I'm Merja.
And I'm Peter, and we're partners in life and partners in purpose. We're both passionate about emotional truth, meaningful work, and what it really takes to live in alignment.
Absolutely, and we pride ourselves on being good communicators. But here's the thing. According to Myers-Briggs, we have zero cognitive functions in common, not one.
So, so you guys can be the judge. Can two people with completely different internal wiring actually understand each other, or at least laugh about the moments when we just don't understand each other?
For sure. And in this series, we share our conversations about healing and work, love, and what it means to lead from inside out as two very, very different people who are walking the same path.
Yeah, and it's not, we're not doing something which is like self-help with a slogan. This is just a space where we can be curious about how to communicate, how to get along as INFPs and INFJs, and sometimes make a mess of it.
Absolutely. You know, that whole point of the name of this podcast is Real Conversations. So we'll see what happens. So thanks for joining us, and we will begin by introducing one another. So I might go first, Peter. So Peter here is Peter Hagerty. He's a creative entrepreneur. He's a mentor and the founder of the Work You Love Network. And over the last 3 decades, Peter's been guiding people toward one mission: to make it culturally normal to earn a living doing what you love. And his approach combines purpose discovery, authentic presentation, and a unique goal-setting method that brings emotional alignment into practical motion. Now, you're probably listening to this and thinking, Peter must be an INFP, and you'd be right. He's worked with artists, actors, writers, technologists, and business owners, helping them identify their real value and then express it with clarity and then charge for it with confidence. So from billion-dollar technology pitches to heart-led creative projects, Peter's coaching really adapts to the person, not necessarily to the industry. And that's how disruption happens. Now, Peter's own journey includes launching his first business at the age of 10, licensing educational methods in his teens, and building a global murder mystery party game business rooted in storytelling. He's worked since, sorry, I was going to tell everybody how many novels you've written, but I think we'll get to that at another time. Sorry. Peter has since worked across all kinds of sectors as varied as space technology, defense, the arts, the reintegration programs for long-term unemployed people. And currently, Peter is focusing on expanding the Work You Love network, mentoring impact-driven entrepreneurs, and developing a feature film inspired by his family. So it's very exciting. You have so much going on, Peter. And at the heart of Peter's work is a steady belief that when we honor our quirks, listen to that, honor our quirks, when we lean into our natural gifts and we serve from truth, both money and meaning follow. So that's Peter.
Thank you, Merja. So I'd like to introduce you. So for everyone who's listening, Merja Sumiloff is first and foremost an equestrian who has become an author, a mentor, and the founder of the Sumiloff Academy. So at heart, Merja is a horsewoman. She's got a lifelong passion, which is obvious to anybody who knows her, for creating ethical horsemanship in everything she does and everything she teaches. And she models trust without coercion, presence with the horse over performance, and leadership rooted in relational safety. So being safe because there's a relationship. And what Merja practices with horses, she also offers to humans. So we often make jokes that, you know, if we're not going to use something at home, it's going to end up being used by the horses. And I'm glad to hear that your work is now being offered to humans. So it's coming back. And Merja creates space where mutual respect and deep listening become a foundation for growth. And I can certainly attest to that, being Merja's partner. But Merja's path into personal development was not very linear. Maybe 15 to 16, 17 years ago, you took a detour into personal development after you had to retrain your nervous system as a result of dealing with a dangerous stalker.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were going through the reparenting stuff, which you teach now, and by grieving what you never received and rebuilding your life. But this time doing it without the weight of childhood conditioning. And that became the soil for your life's work. Mm-hmm. So for the last 10 years, Merja supported INFJs and INFPs, which we often call INFxs, teaching them to reparent themselves through the INFx Unveiled course, using her trauma-informed method for mentoring, emotional fluency training, and the signature framework, the 4 people within curriculum. So this model brings into alignment the thinker, feeler, sensor, and the intuitive within. It helps sensitive souls move from inner conflict to inner clarity. So Merja's work, and this is not a brag, this is just a fact, it's used in over 40 countries and serves educators, therapists, creatives, leaders, and survivors of what we'll call coercive systems. So Merja's mentoring blends fierce compassion with structured guidance, and she creates room for people to step into sovereignty rather than just survive. Now, you may be able to tell from her name, Merja, that she's originally from Finland, but I'm pleased to say she's now based in Australia with me. And Merja continues to live what she teaches with a simple and powerful message. She has a book called Safe Spaces and a program called Safe Spaces as well, which creates openings for profound growth and lasting wisdom. And it's no surprise that that's her autobiography. It's called Safe Spaces. So it's actually about Merja. So, and you can probably hear a dog that we're looking after helping contribute to the podcast. And this is just part of, who we are. We do love animals.
Yes, I'm trying to soothe an elderly dog that is in a new environment and just seeing if she's okay. So apologies if it's a bit patchy and if we have to do some editing here, that's what's going on.
Yep.
So what I'd like to do is start the discussion for today's topic, which is all around intuition, soul resonance, and emotional discernment, and how you and I found each other through Facebook of all places.
Yes.
So, it's so crazy. So we've known each other for 15 years, something like that. And if I remember correctly, we connected, we've befriended each other on Facebook a couple of years before we got together. We were actually doing it through work because you were doing men's empowerment work and I was doing some women's empowerment work at the time. What do you remember about that?
I remember you were doing work with women and I was doing work with men, and you wanted to talk about bringing those two together somehow, but being on the other side of the planet from each other, it didn't seem incredibly practical. And we did actually end up doing that together for a little bit.
We did.
Yeah.
We ran a 6-week program in Sydney, didn't we?
Yes, that's right.
Adjacent to one another, and then coming together at the end.
But the original meeting, I think that we kind of had a little bit of a conversation and realized there wasn't a lot of practicality there. And then at some point, and I don't remember how it occurred, but we just became interested in one another in a whole different manner.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us were looking for something to happen.
No, I wasn't for sure.
Yeah. So I think that really sets us up to talk about resonance, because that's, I think, what happened was a deep resonance occurred without us trying to make something happen. And from my side, without me really even being aware for a little while, Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for anything, and in fact, I'd had really bad experiences. I'd got divorced, and then I ended up with a stalker and stuff like that. So
Mm.
I was just looking to put my head down and work. But yeah, I'd like us to talk about what makes INFx types kind of pause, the INFJs and INFPs to pause and feel that resonance, feel a yes in when you meet people who for work or for personal reasons or for whatever reason might be resonating with you. Do you mind
Mm.
starting on this, and I'll attend to Maple here and see if I can soothe her a little bit.
Yeah. So my thoughts about resonance is, I'm reminded of that saying, like when we're teenagers, you're kind of looking for a relationship and to get a date and that sort of thing. And so frequently when you're in a relationship as a teenager, you tend to be more popular and attractive to other people because you're not looking. And it's almost like that seeking too hard almost pushes away what it is that you're actually seeking. And certainly because with a relationship, there's a certain amount of vulnerability, a certain amount of intimacy, that pushing, that trying to make it happen can be the antithesis of it actually happening. And so we have that situation where once we are not looking, and that's what you and I just described, Merja, we weren't actually looking for anything. Once you're not looking, it's almost as though you take a breath and then you see something that, unless you were relaxed, it would have been invisible. But now that you are relaxed and not looking too hard, it seems completely obvious. And there's a saying that I have, which is like, life is a series of experiences of realizing the completely obvious. And I certainly had that experience in getting to know you, Merja.
I'm just going to give her, Maple, a little bit of food and see if that calms her down.
Okay.
So do you mind
Okay.
exploring that a little bit more while I get onto this? I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I guess this is another point here, right? This podcast is called Real Conversations. And you know what happens with real conversations? Sometimes they get interrupted. So, and that's what's happening here is we're having an interruption. We are looking after an elderly dog this weekend, and that has proven to be a bit more time consuming than we would have anticipated. and
Yeah.
um, and so, yeah, this is just part of life. How do you have a real conversation with somebody that you don't have any cognitive functions in common with, when life is also getting in the way and serving up its myriad of randomness that it just does? And like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you stay focused? And to
Yeah.
me, it comes back to that resonance which we're talking about. Because whenever, Merja, you and I have a major issue with communicating, if I just go, well, how important is this person to me? It's really obvious. Well, this is the person that I just want to be with, and I don't necessarily I don't have to have logical reasons for that.
Mm.
I can come up with a huge list of logical reasons why being with you is fantastic. But at the time, if we're having challenges, don't really want to listen to the logic of why I shouldn't be having a challenge. I just want
That's right.
to. So,
Especially as predominant feelers, you being an INFP, me being an INFJ, the logic tends to come up, especially when we're stressed out or, we over rely on the raw logic and we forget the feeling part of it. But what really, in terms of the resonance too, like, because we don't share any functions in common, the resonance really relies on us being aware of the things that we are contributing to the situation. Things like, is my inner critic coming up? Am I, being too busy helping other people with their challenges to pay attention to what my needs are and how I'm showing up in different situations? Am I even open to feeling resonance with other people, whether it's for work or for in person? So it's a you know, there's a lot there for us to think about when we talk about resonance, and are we even allowing ourselves to feel like a gut yes to something, or even feel connected to another person? Is our inner critic out of control, the thinker, inner child? Are we too busy, as I said, helping other people to even live our own lives? So that's certainly something that INFJs can really struggle with.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, I think we're trying to have a real conversation here, and all I'm thinking is, I completely agree with you. Like,
yeah, this could get boring real quick.
Yeah, it could get pretty boring. So,
so tell me about kind of the intuition from your perspective as an INFP. Tell me about why intuitive connections defy that logical timeline. Like, what is as predominant intuitive, because we are intuitive feelers, introverted intuitive feelers, why when you meet somebody, you get an intuition and it may completely defy any kind of logical stuff, reasoning it or logical timelines, any of that? Tell me more about that from your perspective.
Well, I think that it's really easy to romanticize that sort of thing, like the love at first sight type fantasy. But I think that also does happen. But there's a caution that we have to put in place here. You may meet somebody and you instantly have some sort of connection. And the reason for the connection is that your trauma seems to line up with the other person. And then you just start pushing each other's buttons and driving each other crazy. And really the relationship that might develop is more of an opportunity for you to heal your trauma than it is to relate to the person.
Yeah.
It's more of a challenge for you to relate to yourself than it is to have an actual relationship with another person. And so I think that's very common. And the thing is that when you do have that trauma type connection, the certainty about this is the right person for me tends to be very heady, very much in your head. Here are all the reasons why that person is so good for me. And here are all the reasons why I should be having a good time, even though I'm not, and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But when you have that natural, unbidden connection with somebody that you do deeply resonate with, I think that you're still going to have your traumas and your issues and your insecurities and your fear of vulnerability and intimacy and all these different things come up. But for me, when you're with the right person, even though you may have challenges in communicating, in letting down your guard, in trusting too little or too much at the right time and that sort of thing, even though you have all of that, when you're resonating with the right person, there's a calmness deep down. And when it's trauma-based and it's just trauma and trigger-based, I feel that what tends to be deep down is feeling unsettled and like something's not right here.
Yeah. And can I just jump in there, because you bring
Absolutely.
up a really good point. And it's like when you're relating to somebody's trauma rather than the person themselves. So if you're having a relationship with another person's trauma, not the other person, it's a very chaotic existence. It's like it's up and down. It's these massive emotional things all the time. And it just feels like you can feel addicted to it, and you can feel like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And then you get really devastated if something small goes wrong, or they don't live up to the fantasy that you've created in your mind about, who they are. So who they really are comes through. And it's such a good point that you made there, that if you allow yourself to see beyond the kind of the trauma behaviors of the other person, because ultimately I agree with you, we come together to I might say it a little bit differently, but we come together to grow together. If you only come together to relate to somebody's trauma, once the trauma has been grown and out of and resolved within you, you are no longer attracted to that person. And if the other person's not growing with you, you don't continue to grow together. And sometimes relationships succeed by ending because the purpose was fulfilled in that space. But please continue, Peter. I wanted to jump in there with
No, I love what you're saying. Yeah, but I mean, the big question is, how do you know what's real?
Right.
And
right.
For me, being an INFP, I have a really big driver towards the ethics of it, like the inward feeling, what feels right for me.
Yeah.
And what doesn't feel right for me. And I've had situations, especially early in my adult life, where I'd be getting to know someone and I discovered something about them and immediately go, no. And it's a bit harsh sometimes when I've done that. You know, so it's like, for me, like a big value for me is people that proactively look after their health. And if they immediately go to popping a pill or medication or something without trying a lifestyle or diet change or something, it just turns me off completely. I just don't want to be around it. I want to, take responsibility for health. And if you do need medication, great. But if there's something you can do naturally, I want to be with somebody who does that. And so that's when we talk about the ethicist, that's my ethics. Is it right? It's not right. I'm not right. I'm not the ultimate authority on what is right and what's not right.
Yeah.
But I am the ultimate authority on what is right and what is not right for me.
Right.
So so for me, like that's, I have a really big kind of indicator as to, is this right for me or is this not right for me? Whereas I think with the INFJs, you're a bit more seeking harmony, right? Like
generally, yes. Yeah. But once the feeling function because you talked about the ethicist, which is the inward facing feeling function, that we call it the ethicist at the Sumiloff Academy in the roundtable model, in the 4 people within curriculum. And that's, of course, the INFP's predominant decision-making process is that adult self-ethicist in inward feeling. And for the INFJs, now we're talking about outward feeling. And when it comes to the outward feeling, when it's immature, the first thing it always considers is everybody okay, as in everybody else except for me. And then when it matures, the me piece, the I as a part of everyone comes in a lot more. And in fact, when you're fully owning your own life and you're fully integrated in yourself, where you can function, of course, there's always going to be growth, but that you're no longer coming from a place of trauma, you actually consider yourself first. So it begins to look, that outward feeling begins to look a lot more like the inward feeling that the INFPs have. But up until that point, it's always like, is everybody okay? And then, am I okay as an INFJ? And that gets us into a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble.
Yeah. So as you're talking there, like I've noticed you making that journey of just a lot of people will look. I don't want to be judgmental, but from an INFP's point of view, it looks like people pleasing, right? Like,
sure.
But then, just to show I'm not really judging, I myself, instead of being that harsh about, well, this is right for me, and that's the beginning and end of it, being with you has helped me go, well, hang on, how can I do more of what's right for other people?
Right.
Because it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be a dichotomy about it's either this or that. It can be, well, what's the harmonious thing? And that is what, INFJs are much better at that. than INFPs. And I've
Generally
had to
can
learn.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I know when you and I as a team have had to deal with difficult circumstances, I've learned to not do my thing of just go in and state what I think the truth is, and rely upon you to come in and do what I don't know if you call it this, but I call it Merja's charm offensive, where you just go in and and just like create harmony. And I'm like, I've frequently sat back and gone, wow, I'm glad I didn't do it my way, because it would have been not so good. So.
Well, that's very generous of you, and it's more like, I think the outward feeling, and we call it the unifier in the four people within curriculum. So it really describes the function of it, like what it does. It unifies it. The key for me is, okay, what are the unmet needs that are actually driving the dynamics within the situation? So for example, right now we're recording this. Mabel is having a hard time. I'm wondering, what is her unmet need? I'm thinking, do I need to take her out? Do I need to, like, does she want water? No, she doesn't want water. Does she want food? I gave her some food. She hasn't eaten it all. Now she's continuing on it. So there's this constant thing of, what are the unmet needs? Is it, this, is it that? And then try and remove those obstacles that are the unmet needs, meet the needs, and so we can actually come together and create a solution that works for everyone. Most problems in relationships and disagreements actually are misunderstandings. They're just people just not understanding that you have something going on that you need satisfied before you're able to show up as the best version of yourself, or the most productive version of yourself for this situation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a charm offensive, but it's almost like, okay, what needs to be done here before we can actually do this thing that we're here to do? So it can be quite a lot of navigating.
Yeah, look, I call it a charm offensive if we're dealing with a personality who is trying to create conflict.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then you come in and do your unifier action. Whereas, yeah.
And
So
you'll probably find it quite, you're right. And you'll probably find it quite aggravating when somebody's being a real so-and-so, and I'm just like, but look at this one thing that they're doing really well. Like, I'm not even attaching into what's going on. I don't care, because really, truly, until that person feels at ease, things are just not going to get done. That's how I operate. But flipping that particular switch or that coin to the other side is something that INFJs can learn from INFPs, so that the unifier can learn from the ethicist, is really get in touch with what is truly authentically right for them. Because it's really hard to get your needs to be met if you don't know what they are, right?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things, and this is something I've really learned from you, from all the years of kind of being in your sphere and observing you saying no to things, is I've learned to say no. And I've also learned to say yes. A yes that actually means something, not just a yes because I want to keep the peace. So there's a lot there that I feel like we've learned from each other, and it brings. If we look at the four people within framework, as we mentioned in this at the start, that we don't have any cognitive functions in common, but actually, once you go deeply into this work, the four people within become the 8 people within. And I'm not going to go into the technicalities of it right here, because it's a lot. But eventually our shadow, like my shadow functions, are your 4 people within, and vice versa. So once you do enough of this work and you learn, like my feeler learns from your feeler, what I'm actually doing is I'm learning about my shadow feeler, and I'm learning to have a good relationship with that family member.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
So as you're saying that, I'm just thinking that us not having any cognitive functions in common, but having that deep resonance, creates an opportunity to really grow. And
Yes.
opportunities to grow are great, but you don't want too much opportunity to grow, because it's like pressure and stress. So you want some foundation. And
absolutely.
I mean, I think especially if you're an INFP and INFJ in a relationship, one thing that I think has been really helpful when we're just not getting each other is just to have a hug, because that's it. Just, at the basis of all of this, we are human beings, and being able to connect with each other and being kind to each other is really what it's all about, regardless of your cognitive functions and so on. And that's my philosophy on it. But I should let everyone know I'm not a Myers-Briggs trained person. I've kind of been interested in Myers-Briggs since about 1986. And I did, you probably heard in the intro that I am interested in game design, and I designed a game based on sensor, intuitor, feeler, thinker, and I called it SIFT. And I did that when I was quite young, and sold the rights to that quite young. So I've had the interest, but I'm not the expert with the training that Merja has.
You don't have to be an MBTI nerd to really benefit from all of this work, and knowing your 4 people within, and knowing the different functions and how they operate. And I love that you created that board game, because you are also a board game designer. I don't think we talked about this before in the intro or anything like that. But just purely, I wanted to, as I was taking the dog out to help her relieve herself, I was thinking, I was tuning into what you were saying, and I was thinking that, that whole thing of us being super intuitive as INFJs and INFPs, how that the intuitive connections that we make in the outside world, and the resonance that we create with people or feel with people, how that can really be defied, or how the intuitive connections defy logical timelines and logical thinking, and how we make decisions with the cognitive thinking function, is that really the biggest difference is that intuition is actually a pattern recognition skill. It's an information collecting function, whereas logical thinking, or being logical or making thinking decisions, that's a decision-making function. So they actually, the two, logic and intuition, work together, but they don't do the same job. One collects information and the other one makes decisions. So there's a lot of defiance in intuition, because it's the job of intuition and sensing, which are information collecting parts, to defy, to challenge decision making, to continue to bring information up to the logical mind or the feeling heart to try and make that decision accordingly. So just wanted to jump in and say that. But I'm really interested in how you experienced when we met, how you experienced this almost like a bit of a power struggle between the intuition and the logical timelines and logical thinking from your point of view. What was your experience in when we met on Facebook and came together and as partners?
Intuitively, of course, it felt right, but logically, you're literally on the other side of the world, right? So like, what more? That's a pretty big hindrance. And I mean, oftentimes there'll be hindrances to a budding relationship, but they're not usually so in your face. So to meet up, I think you came and visited here first, and then I went to Ireland, and then we kind of decide, you came here. So basically the whole thing is, well, what if there's no chemistry? What if we're just emotionally and intellectually really aligned?
Yes.
And then so meeting up kind of solved the whole chemistry.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how much logic I employed. The logic started going to problem solving of, well, how do I get to Ireland and how do I fit that in to everything I'm doing, and how and then you decided, I think you came in with, well, let's get you to teach some of your courses here. And so I was teaching about purpose and make money doing what you love and all that sort of thing. And so you just made it work for my career. So I don't know, like it's a bit of a blur. It all seemed really right and quick. Although we had known each other for quite some time, it just, once it kind of started, it just went, just happened.
Right.
All of a sudden.
Right.
So what was your experience? I know we've kind of spoken about this, but
yeah. I don't actually, as I'm a scientist, I have a science degree, but I don't want to science this out. I can't explain how I knew. I just knew, and I would hate to overanalyze it. And my gut has never guided me wrong. So whenever I've felt something in my gut that's been really right, then I've gone, okay, I understand, I hear you. This is what I need to do. But I also know that the gut feeling doesn't work for everyone. That's not universal truth. Different people operate in different ways. And one of the things that people don't know about me necessarily is that I've studied also human design, which talks about how you actually utilize your energy and how you recognize when your truth is being spoken. So people do operate very, very differently. And that's why it's really important to know how you operate as opposed to how somebody else operates. And if I think of things like after the 2019, 2020, the Black Summer bushfires, like a big conflict arose at the time because it was so stressful. All those conflicts and all the kind of the bits and bobs, the disagreements and so on, you had to really kind of look through it to see if the resonance is still there. And so whenever there was like a really stressful situation or a conflict between us, I had to really shift and sort through all the stuff to get to the gut feeling, is this right for me? And if it is, then I can commit to it fully. Then it's just details that need to be ironed out and just things that, the resonance has to be there.
Yeah. So just to give people context, when Merja talks about the Black Summer, if ever any of you have ever been under threat of bushfire, like usually it's like a few days, the fire comes, the fire goes, and it either messes up your property or it doesn't. Whereas we had a situation where fires were coming from different directions for months, and it was very, very draining. And so as far as a test on a relationship goes, like we were just getting up in the middle of the night and checking this app that we have where we live called Fires Near Me, and just to check, do we have to evacuate at 3 a.m.? And that was our life for about 3.5 to 4 months. And so I don't think we really argue a hell of a lot, but geez, did we have some conflict during that time, because we were both under a lot of stress, and it was just didn't stop.
It was months, as you said, and we lost 1.2 million acres, 1.2 million acres around us was burning, and in 4 different places. So it was coming from every direction. So we were just lucky that the wind didn't turn into a specific direction, and then we would have perished.
And I just remember, I'm not sure if it was the 3rd or 4th time that we evacuated. We had our dogs in the car and we're driving out, and then there's a volunteer service in New South Wales where we live called the Rural Fire Service, which Merja is now a part of. And we're driving out and saw I counted 80 RFS trucks coming the other direction to make a massive fire break to basically stop the fires 800 meters from our house. And I just remember feeling the incredible level of support from those firefighters. And Mary, I also realized that I feel that level of support from you pretty much all the time. But because it's a bit like a fish being in water and doesn't sense the water, because it's so constant, I don't necessarily always sense it. And so I think those firefighters gave me a really great metaphor to realize that you were supportive all the way through. And that may be because of the unifier driver that you have, or not. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, for me, that was pretty extraordinary. So for anybody listening, Mary and I have had certain things happen where we've been under incredible stress, and prolonged periods of stress, where it's really tested everything. And we're not just this couple that's got completely different cognitive styles, who just has a really wonderful lifestyle and, can spend our whole days working on our relationship.
Looking after other people's dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which I do need to go back to because she's really having a hard time. Can we start wrapping this session up and maybe go to our main takeaways? Are you okay to start with that, Peter?
Yep.
Lovely.
Yeah. So one thing that we're wanting to do to wrap up this episode is talk about how INFJs and INFPs recognize resonance in relationships. And what I wanted to say from my point of view is it's not how exciting or thrilling the relationship is when you want to recognize resonance. It's what brings about this deep sense of ease. It's like this, I've said it before, this deep calmness or this deep sense of ease, this feeling of it's just right. Like there's an inherent trust that it's just there. And, that trust then enables you to go and do exciting things. Like Mary and I like to travel and go into nature and so on and go to nice restaurants. And it's that deep level of trust where it's just so pervasive and constant and a strong foundation, and it just enables you to relate. And one of the most exciting things that I've done within our relationship that is an external facing aspect of the relationship is Merja asked me to introduce her at her book launch, and that for me is just one of those things, one of those really important life experiences. So I don't speak for Merja, but if someone asks me what Merja might want or what's important to her, I feel I can check in and get an idea, because I want to know what is in line with Merja's personal ethics, and that's my ethicist being able to then do a bit of unifying, because I'm thinking about what is in line for somebody else. And I feel I can usually, if somebody asks me what's right for Merja, I can give them a fairly accurate answer, but I always go, but you got to check with Merja, because I'm not Merja.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's yeah.
Yeah, we know each other. It feels like we know each other really deeply, but then at the same time, we're separate people. So knowing not to enmesh and thinking that the other person thinks this way just because you think they would.
Yeah. So that's what I was just talking about. That's what I see. I just want to keep talking, but I'll wrap up. That's how I feel that INFPs and INFJs can recognize resonance in relationships, is that deep knowing that this is calming, and there's a certainty and a calmness and almost a quietness that is speaking constantly, which is a bit of a contradiction, but that's the sense. It contradicts itself.
Yeah. I love that. And for me, resonance can't be controlled, but our actions and decisions around resonance can. So just because, for example, just because you love someone doesn't necessarily mean that you can build a life together. Just because you feel resonant with someone doesn't necessarily mean that it's practical. So that's good to remember too. But the important thing really is to continue to discover the person beyond the honeymoon phase. So there's these three different phases in relationships. There's the honeymoon phase, then there's the power struggle, and then there's the power couple phase. And it's really just so soul nourishing to work through, even though it's hard, to work through the power struggle phase. So that you can get to the other side of that. And it's important because in that power struggle phase, you actually get to know who the other person really is and how, you know, who you are and how you can continue to grow together if that's what you decide to do. So I'd like to leave it at that. I need to go back to this pup. You can probably hear her. So apologies for anyone who has struggled with me jumping in and out of this conversation. But I've taken the responsibility to look after this pup, so that's what I'm doing now. And I appreciate your kind words about the, you know, the unifier and feeling looked after like we do with the fieries. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Merja.